So that's how you start using psychedelics, because you lived in Amsterdam? That's all I hear about Amsterdam, the drugs. Yeah. When someone says Amsterdam, the first thing that comes to my mind is drugs. Okay.
Yeah, that's basically what comes to mind for everybody. And weirdly, I didn't really start using psychedelics at all. And after I've lived in Amsterdam, not even, because it's in Amsterdam is just where all the tourists go to score weed, basically. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny, because I lived in Berkeley too for a year when I moved to United States, and I hadn't even tried. In Berkeley, it's where the hippie movement started, right? The whole the Summer of Love, because of UC Berkeley, and then you went to Silicon Valley. But I lived in Berkeley for a year, and I didn't try anything, like no drugs, not even weed. I was there clean for a year, and I lived there, and I'm like, wow, that's, looking back now, it's like, that's surprising for me, right?
Right, but don't you think it has some sort of calling? Like you have to sort of be ready for it, and then you start to naturally sort of wonder about it, and then it kind of comes.
Yes, like this weekend I did an ayahuasca ceremony with my friend who met me 8 years ago when I first moved here. And after the session, he was like, Laisa, that is so crazy, because I was thinking when I first met you, you were trying to convince me to stop smoking pot. And now, you were like, and now you turn, like, you start doing all psychedelics, and now you're an advocate. And before, you would talk shit to me about doing like even weed, and I'm like, wow, I changed a lot. So he met the old me, the religious me. Like I changed so much in 8 years that is like, you wouldn't recognize me if you talked to me 8 years ago. First of all, I wouldn't even talk to you if you told me that you had done any drugs. I wouldn't even talk to you. That's where I was at mentally.
Wow, what's that like? So that's really because of your religious upbringing. That's just like, that's your frame of mind. And
yeah, because it was the way I was raised, right? It's very religious. I did the whole thing in the church, like to help the priest, and we call it catecismo and chrisma, and like the whole studies in the church. And in my mind, the drugs were all the same. There was no separation between cannabis and psychedelics and heroin. So for me, it was like in that same box, and I wouldn't even touch, not even cigarettes. I haven't smoked cigarettes until I was like 20, 23, 24.
And so what did you think of people who did do that? Because, I mean...
Crazy people.
You've got this crazy people. Crazy. Oh, wow.
Drug addicts, I would think like, oh my God, soon they're going to start selling stuff from their parents and their family, because that's what I saw growing up, right? People that were addicted to heroin and cocaine, and they were young and they would live with their parents, and they would start selling their parents' stuff to buy drugs. So whenever I would see someone who done drugs, I would be like, oh my God, soon they're going to start dying and selling their parents' stuff. Like my mind was like...
It all starts with that first talk of that joint. It's like basically already determines your fate. Like
all it takes is a spark. That's all it takes.
The first time you inhale, it's like you can already start selling your TV and your parents' stuff and sell your grandmother, basically, because
that's how I thought.
Right next on the list. That's how it goes.
How I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
And no, but also like all it took for me was to try one psychedelic and like the whole thing open, right? And I feel like it was a deep awakening because I had the framework, right? That's how things work. And in the midst of like me transitioning to psychedelics, it was me becoming an atheist, and like a religion is BS. All they told me about drugs is BS. So it's like my whole reality fell apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That must have been a really angry phase.
It still is. I still have that anger within me. I was thinking well, I told you, right? I don't know how much of my personality is really who I am and what is just reaction because of all the repression that I've been through. And when I say repression, not only the church, but from my parents and society. So I have a lot of revolt energy inside me that like, I'm angry with all this stuff they put in my mind. So I have this archetype playing right now.
Which is so, I mean, that's also kind of awesome, right? Because there is on the one hand, it's like, when you're reacting to what you've like been taught or something, or you're just rebelling against either your parents or society, or like some sort of thing that has been put on you and you were too young to realize that you could make your own decision about it. And then there's this anger, and I'm going to do the opposite of that. I'm going to rebel. And that feels like you're creating your own personality, you're individuating, but actually you're still kind of not completely free, because you're still, you know, if you're the opposite of that, then you're not free from that. You're not defining yourself separate from it, because you're still referring to it. It's just inverted. But on the other hand, it's also kind of awesome, I think, because it creates just like really awesome journeys in life, for lack of a better term, right? I mean, it's a really important phase to go through for many people, I think.
Yes, I feel like it's I don't know if I don't know if it's the grief cycle, but I've heard about this cycle, which is like the first step is like you notice something, and then the first step is like denial. You're like, you don't want to look at it. You get very resistant, like no, 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 I'm not doing that. And then the second step is like realizing that thing that is happening, like the repression or the culture or whatever. And once you acknowledge, you get very angry about it. You're like,
Oh
I
yeah.
can't believe that this is happening. Once you decide to face, I cannot believe that this is happening. I was lied to my whole life, and like your reality falls apart. And then from that anger comes action, and then you do something about it, like, okay, I'm going to take the charge. I'm going to take charge over my life. I'm going to think for myself. And then after that action comes acceptance, which is like you're embodying, like you're taking yourself back, right? And
Yeah.
okay, things are like that, and that anger kind of goes away, and I can see the cycle in my life. And right now I feel like I'm the anger phase. Have you heard about this cycle?
Yes, and I've actually, what I know about it is that people need to go through all of those stages, like acceptance, denial, anger. There's two more, I think, but they don't have to be in a specific order. So some people, they have gone through, oh yeah, bartering or negotiating. Basically, it's like it's the step that many people often forget, but it's also there. It's like, why does it have to happen? And it's easy to recognize when people have a tragic death or something like that. They have to process like, okay, why did he have to die? Why did it have to happen to me, etc., etc. But it actually happens with everything. Like every loss that you have to process, you also go through a little bit of that negotiating. But if you don't have the opportunity to go through that, then that becomes a trauma. And so that's like something that sometimes I
Yeah, the
encounter.
grief cycle is not only death, right? Of someone you love. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the whole shit show that we see here. Things are dying all the time, including us, our personality.
Things are dying all the time. It's loss, and the loss can even be of something that you didn't even know you had or should have had. Having a need not fulfilled by parents is a loss, and even though you're not aware that you're not getting something that you need, it's still a loss. And if you're not aware of it, then you cannot process the negotiating stage, for example. Like you cannot really get angry about it because you don't know exactly what's wrong, and you can also not go, why does this have to happen? This is so wrong. This is not fair. This and that. And so the stages of grief don't have to happen in like the order of like 1 to 3 to 4 or 5, but they do have to happen, all of them. And if you skip some of them, then you can catch up with that.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. But I'm so, before we get into like that stuff, I'm so curious because, you know, I would have watched a lot of your videos, but I don't speak Portuguese.
I know.
And I think it's such a beautiful language, and I wish I had time to learn it right now, but maybe later, you know. But I'm so curious, what like drew you to do that, to take that first psychedelic? Like, why were you able to break through all that conditioning and just do something completely opposite to do that?
Well, I feel like I had smoked weed before, and I was kind of like dipping my toes in the water. But the shift happened the day that I took MDMA. It was like and I talk a lot, right? Once I took MDMA, I was mute. It was like my voice was gone because there was so much happening. And I had traveled a lot before coming to the United States. I was backpacking in South America. And then when in my first year here, I went to Mexico, Belize, and Guatemala, and then I went to Canada. And I just had this mindset of like exploring new cultures. And Terence McKenna says that the closest to a psychedelic trip is traveling. And I feel like the journey started with me traveling and experiencing another cultures, and just going, like, the first country that I went in my life was Bolivia, which is like, it's very poor, but just going there and seeing, wow, that's how they do things here. And I lived my whole life thinking that my way was the only way. And then I moved here, and I still had like the desire to travel a lot. But the day that I took MDMA, it was like I imploded, like, before I exploded, and I wanted to explore all the countries, and MDMA showed me that I had a whole universe inside myself. And I was just mute. I couldn't talk. I was like, and then I started thinking about aliens. I could not stop thinking about the fact that there are other entities or beings out there. In my limited mind, it showed me the same thing with traveling, right? That I had that framework that, oh, that's not everything. There's a lot that not only exists, but it's also unseen, like paranormal stuff. And I'm like, wow. And I was just shocked. I was like mute. And also my heart, like, because of all my traumas that I went through in Brazil, I feel like that's where my healing journey started, because I had this little heart that I felt like it was inside a metal box and it couldn't expand. And once I took MDMA, the box disappeared and my heart just expanded. And in my mind, I'm like, wow, that's what moms feel when they have a child. That's what unconditional love is. And just having my heart expanding that to that size, and thinking that, like, the capacity of a human being to feel things, to love, it was shocking in the intellectual side, but also in the emotional, like my heart, how we can really experience the full potential of what it is being a human, right? I feel like the MDMA really opened me up.
Oh my God, that's you got one of the best effects that you could have. Like, that's not a typical ecstasy trip at all. That's a spiritual awakening.
It is. Yeah. It was.
Wow.
And then I started meditating. It's interesting because it was a call, because weeks before I did the MDMA session, I started meditating, and it was the first time in my life that I closed my eyes. And I had written down in one of my journals, like, I felt like my body was traveling in the cosmos, and just me describing a meditation session. And I'm like, wow, because I've never been taught to just sit, and like I've prayed before, but like connecting with myself and just closing my eyes, because I was watching Leo already, and he talks about silent meditation, just listening to the silence, just like let whatever is inside to just. And I described my meditation session, and I'm like, wow. And I really discovered an underground world inside myself. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds super fascinating.
How did you start?
Yeah, that's how it started. Yeah. Oh my God. First time I took LSD, I literally everything was against me, it seemed. It was like a completely chaotic setting. I was at a festival, and I thought friends were going to take it with me, but actually at the last moment, my friend said, yeah, well, we don't do that. Like, that's way too serious for us. Like, we're just going to have some weed and that's it, you know? And also, like, we're not going to trip sit you or like watch you while you do like this super hard, intense drug. Like, we don't want to be responsible for that. And I stood there with my 2 tabs of acid thinking I was going to be supported. But yeah, that was a little bit of a moment of, I don't know, should I go into it? But and also I was there. I had just broken up with a very serious ex-girlfriend. So like 2 weeks ago we had broken up, and she was at the same festival, 2-3 meters from me, camped out there. Like, what are the chances that she's also going to be there, super close to our site? And I had all this unprocessed anger and rage and jealousy and just a lot of pain, you know. And it was all focused directly at like 3/10 away from our camp. So, you know, a lot of factors were not what you might call a perfect set and setting or something like that. Mm-hmm. But there was this calling of like, it was just a curiosity that I already had for like 2 years or something. And something in me just said, it was also sort of a bit like, fuck it, you know, I'm already here. just gonna make the best of it. And then I took 2 tabs by accident because
By accident?
because like the only guy in our group of people that we were with who like knew something about LSD told me from his expertise, well, if you don't feel anything in the first 30 minutes, it doesn't work. So might as well take the other one too. And that's what I did.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was an intense day.
Tell me about the experience. What is it? All the suspense, and you're not going to tell all the details.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, I spent the day strolling around the festival and being overwhelmed by sensations and feelings, and so many beautiful things happened that it, even though you might say, doing it at a party is not, the proper way to do it or something, like there were so many things that synchronicitously made it feel like a very spiritual experience for me. For example, I was watching this stage of these musicians that were playing, and it was this sort of perpetual jam session. So people would just come on, grab an instrument, start playing, and other people would just go off and replace each other, and the music would constantly sort of change but always continue. And like, this is the most awesome thing to watch, right? So we sat down, and all of a sudden, like, this guy who's singing, he tells everybody to stop playing, like completely silent, and he just like points at this woman and says like, "Hey, you, come to the stage." And she walks up to the stage, and he begins to like explain like into the microphone how much he appreciates her and how long they've been together and how much he loves her, and he just flat out asks her to marry him.
Oh my God!
Everybody is like. And at the moment, I'm peaking on a substance that I have never experienced before. So I don't know whether this is real, right? So I don't know. I didn't know the difference between perceptual distortions and hallucinations. So I'm just walking, like I'm looking over to my friend, like, "Hey, did that just like happen? Like, did someone actually ask this girl to marry him from the stage?" You're like, "Yeah, that actually happened." Like, "Oh, that's awesome!" And I couldn't process the amount of like love and just how much that moved me. Almost couldn't process it. So that was something that just set the tone for the rest of the trip. And even though I was feeling overwhelmed by all the intensity and the colors and the stimulation that I've never experienced before, and something else was really significant, which was that I was basically on the 3 to 4 hour mark. I started to get so peaceful and so centered, and my friends, there were like 4 friends of mine who had all taken weed. So they had taken space cake, what they call space cake in the Netherlands, which is like you make weed into a cookie and you eat it basically. And and so they had told me like, "Oh, we're just gonna do this space cake, like it's no big deal. You with your LSD, this is too hardcore for us." And the space cake people started to get more and more and more sick and paranoid. And like there was one girl who she had like her hair all over, like over her face, and was like completely out of it. She's like, she couldn't even trust someone. Like we tried to give her something to drink and she wouldn't even take it because she couldn't trust anybody. She was like, "Oh, I don't trust you." And she literally looked like the girl from The Grudge or The Ring or something like that. And 4 of those people all started to throw up. Like they just came out of their tent and one after the other, up. And I'm just helping everybody to center themselves, feel their body, feel their feet on the floor, take a deep breath. And as people started getting more and more sick and paranoid and fearful, I just started getting more and more centered, even though the colors and the distortions are still happening. I'm like, "Oh my God, I feel so centered. I can guide people to, feel more peaceful." And I was becoming the trip sitter, even though I was the one on acid. And in doing that, I also learned a very important lesson that I really needed, which is letting go. And people had told me in the months leading up to that, like with the breakup with my girlfriend at the time was so dramatic, and all my friends had to hear the stories, like, "Oh, she did this to me and she said that, can you believe that? And I said this to her, what do you think?" And people had been telling me like, "Erik, like maybe you should let it go." And I'm like, let it go? What does that mean? I have no idea what people mean when they say let it go. So I was so in the depth of that drama. And suddenly I'm staring, I'm sitting in a meditative posture, and I'm looking at this flame of this candle that served as our campfire, basically. And I feel so centered. I'm like, oh, that's what letting go is. It's like trusting that nature will take care of me. And like if something goes away, then something else good might come in place of that. And all like that's
Wow.
yeah, like you can tell that to someone, but unless they really like get it, it's just not going to land. And that was the case for me. It just didn't land until I had that experience of looking at the trees around me and just really getting on a deep level, like, oh, okay, I will be taken care of, even though I lose people and I lose things. And it just sort of this trust appeared that I never had before. And that was completely unexpected, but that really showed me like, okay, psychedelics can really do something for me that goes beyond having a cool experience.
I feel like that's an insight, right? So because we're always trying to control. We think
Yeah.
that if we don't control, life is not going to unfold. In the opposite, it's very counterintuitive, because when you let go, life unfolds perfectly, and you see that you trying to do things is actually messing up the whole thing, right? It's basically, Matt Kahn says that the ego is the one that he thinks that he's driving the car, but he has a wheel made of plastic in his hands, and he's like, ooh, he's thinking, he's suffering,
Oh
and
yeah.
our higher self is the one driving the car. But and our issues comes when we think that we have a lot of control, because we think that we're so powerful that we have all this control, and the truth is that we have zero control. And the sooner we realize that, the better it is. Now, when it comes to processing relationships, I broke up from a relationship recently, and I had so much pain. And I went to an ayahuasca ceremony. It was like gone, gone. Like I had so much pain in my heart. And then the next day after the ceremony, I was like, where's all the pain? Like all the drama that I've been experiencing, like all the battle in my mind. Like, why did we break up? What did I do? Suddenly it's just like that silence. I'm like, oh, it was taken. And then I was surprised by how much of our emotions are generated in our consciousness, right? Our mind, like just thinking, like the way we think, the framework of like our narrative about the story, like you were saying, like all the drama, you're talking about the stories, and then suddenly it's just like, I can just relax. And that's powerful.
Yeah. Is that your most recent one? Is that what still
Yes,
is?
yes. It was my most recent relationship. It was very painful. I think it was the first relationship that I suffered a lot. I mean, I suffered in the other ones, but this one it was the first relationship that I actually focused on myself, instead of just saying, yeah, we broke up because he was this, and that. It was the first one that I'm like, okay, let's look at what I was doing. And just sitting with my own darkness and my stuff was like, okay, that's a lot of lesson all at once to face myself. And of course, psychedelics helped me with that. It's a whole journey, right? It's not like psychedelics do this thing. It's like I need to do my work too. But yeah, and ayahuasca is. Have you tried ayahuasca?
I will 2 weeks from now.
It's just so different. It's very compassionate, instead of like mushrooms are more masculine. Even LSD, I feel like it's more chill than mushrooms, at least in my experience. But ayahuasca has all that feminine love, that it's very, it's an exhale. Like the masculine is just like doing, and ayahuasca is basically what you just said. It's like just relaxing your body and knowing that you are being taken care of. That just seeing the perfection in the mass, which is very difficult when we're deep inside suffering. It's like, oh, why is this happening? Just seeing that, like yesterday, no, Sunday after an ayahuasca ceremony, I had a very important message sent to me. And like right after the ayahuasca ceremony, it's like the mechanism of reality is like I received the light, right, in the ayahuasca ceremony. And then overnight the universe is working, while I'm sleeping, the universe is just changing the how do you say, like the car, the engine of the thing. And then I woke up on Sunday with with a notice that I need to leave my apartment. And deep inside, I knew that I had to leave. But it was like, oh, in a couple months, okay. But ayahuasca is like, no, you're going to leave right now. So the woman's like, oh, the owner is gonna move into the house and blah, like a whole story. And I'm like, okay, I'm being kicked out, and the universe is pushing me to the next phase. But it happened overnight. It was like, and I was so shocked how fast the universe works and my first reaction would be in the past to panic, right? Oh, I need to leave. Where am I going to leave? Because I know the next steps. My intuition tells me, but I'm very resistant. Like the ego wants to have control. I want to be here in comfortable a little longer. And in the past, I would freak out. But now I'm like, I know that whatever path is showing up, it's going to be for my best. It's going to be the best thing that could have happened. And I'm just so connected to the divine. I created this devotion practice where I'm meditating a lot and connecting with myself, and it brought me a lot of peace towards the unexpected things that happen, about my lack of control over my life, and just knowing that even if it's a mess, even it's imperfection, it's ugly, it's painful, I know that it's bringing me to a higher place. And I think ayahuasca brings me a lot of those insights of like just relaxing. I'm not in control, and whatever is happening, like I'm being taken care of. And my vision for my life, I can even imagine how is this vision, but the universe has things that I can even think of, right? It has this really good place that I'm going to be, that I can even imagine with my framework that I have right now, like my way of thinking. So it's like, okay, it's not my plans, right, that they're unfolding. Matt Kahn says that they're your plans and there are God's plans, and only one of them is going to unfold. And he's like, guess which one it is.
Yeah. But that's so fascinating, because what I'm hearing is that on the one side, ayahuasca helped you reconfigure something like internally, and then life responded, or something that was meant to happen happened after that.
I feel like it happened faster. It would happen eventually.
Faster. Yeah. But then also it enabled you to see that in a different way, right? Because it also allowed you to interpret it in a good way, because you could have panicked. Like you said, you could have panicked. An earlier version of you would have panicked about having to leave your apartment. So then
just having the ayahuasca too in my blood, right? Just like that peacefulness of just seeing everything and everyone. Like I have a lot of need to fix and to change people's minds, and like to just do things, and just being the observer and watching unfold without doing anything, because everything is perfect the way it's happening, even though there's a lot to improve, just that peacefulness.
Here's a question for you. Do you think that it's happening because you're ready to interpret it in the right way? So somehow this prepared you, and then life sort of goes like, well, now you're ready to handle this. So now you go out of your apartment because you're getting an eviction notice, because now you've basically reconfigured internally in a way where you could interpret that as a good thing. So now you're ready, so then it happens?
No, I think the more we get in flow with life, the more we accept the things. That's what enlightenment is, right? It's not that enlightened people don't suffer. They just have a different reaction towards the things that happen. And I feel like it was supposed to happen. I was supposed to leave, and I could panic, but I feel like just the mindset, right? Just knowing that whatever happens is for my best. And I think it would happen regardless if I did the ayahuasca or no. Psychedelics are a technology, right? So like you could make your clothes, but you have a place that you can just go and buy your clothes, right? Making your clothes would take a long time for you to sew the whole thing there, but you can just buy. That's a technology. You go there, you have money, and you buy. Ayahuasca just like pushed me a little harder towards where I'm supposed to be. And our suffering in life comes from resisting the changes, from thinking that things are not supposed to happen that way, they should take longer. And the more we get in flow with life, and the more we trust the divine, and and get in like just relaxing mode of like, okay, this is happening now, it's time to move, let's not panic, let's just gather this stuff and move on to the next phase. And trusting that is the best thing that could happen, even though I have a part of me that wants to panic. And just observing that neurotic side of me, like, oh my God, like I don't need to panic. Just and I feel like ayahuasca helps in the feelings of the body, because the body freaks out, right? Like the heart starts beating fast and like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And because of that, we have a lot of reactions and wanna control. So I feel like the ayahuasca was still in my blood. So I had that whole peacefulness and love within myself, and like and also knowing that I'm there for myself, right? Because before I feel like I would freak out because, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Because I didn't really trust myself. But now I'm in a point of like, I know I'm there for me, and wherever I go, I'm gonna bring that with me. Yeah, I don't know if I responded to your question.
Yeah, no, I'm so with you on that. Yeah.
How is your relationship with control and psychedelic trips?
Yeah, I've had a thought that the way you basically have, the way you navigate a psychedelic trip is probably the same way you navigate life for like the best experience.
That's really true.
Interestingly, I find it way more easy to let go of control during a trip than during life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's psychedelic. It's not that they do something different to you. You don't become another person. It's basically it amplifies whatever you have within you. So people are like, "What if I try a psychedelic and I freak out?" And I always respond, "Are you freaking out when you're sober? Because if you're freaking out or when you're sober, you're gonna freak out in the psychedelic trip. So it's not like." Yeah. If you don't have stability in your daily life, in the normal reality, you are not gonna have stability in the psychedelic trip. So it just amplifies who you are. And it's not like it changes like fundamental things about you. Sometimes it does, right? But mostly it's just feeling what we're not and getting to the core of who we are.
Yeah, I don't know what I would say to my relationship with control. I know that a few years ago, I would always say to people like, I'm a control freak. That was something that I saw in myself and I identified with. I'm a control freak. I have to have things go exactly my way. And I would even try to control my friends in a certain way or something like that. I would give them certain, like I would help them with something, but then I would really need to see that they would take the next step or something like that. You know how sometimes your friends ask you for advice and then you say, well, I would do this and that. And then if they wouldn't do that, I would get like really freaked out by that. I would get pissed off actually, because I just wanted to, I don't know, my ego just sort of took that as an opportunity to control. And I realized later that's exactly what my mother does. And I basically took that pattern of behavior from my mother. She's great, but she would do that, like sort of like check in on you a little bit too much after you just had like this sort of conversation about something. Hey, what should I do about this? What should I do about that? And then you know how you just get like a little bit too much of like tips and hey, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that, and like it's like almost like you need to cut this off because it's getting a little too much. Like you still need to be your own person, make your own decisions on your own time, and have that autonomy. So that's like I would also sense that I would kind of control other people sometimes, but honestly, that's a long time ago since I've noticed that. I think that's something that really shifted. Yeah.
And it's like the approach you have with yourself, you're going to have with people around you, right? So if you control your own life, you're going to want to control people too. It's like a reflection of how you, and it's like a language, like let's get into childhood. It's a language, right? You learned to with your mom that's how things are done. So it's like this, like you control things and things don't happen if you don't control. So you need to always be on top of things. You need to know what people are doing. And it's a language. Like childhood is basically this box of tools that like, okay, those are the toys that you're going to play with your whole life. And inside this box is anxiety. How do I deal with the control? I have a lot of anxiety. So it's like inside this box has a lot of feelings, right? Of what you can play with. And I was doing an exercise with my dad, right, for my therapy, and inside this exercise I would have to write, when my dad was aggressive, how did I felt? And it was like, I felt anxious, I felt sad, I felt angry, I felt revolted, I felt hate. And it's like a box of things, that of feelings that I still have nowadays. And it's like my language and how I navigate this universe through those feelings, because that's the language that was taught to me. So just seeing that, that's what I experienced my whole childhood, and those are the default feelings that I experience nowadays, that I need to transcend, right, and process, and include new ones, new toys, to play with. It's a language that we learn growing up, because we don't know anything else, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't want it to, like, my mother is not a controlling person, by the way, not at all. It's just more like this anxiety that gets projected into, like, just a little too much of checking in on you, and it's very, very subtle. And
concern too, right? For moms, it's concern.
It's so common. Like, again, like, I have one of the best mothers you could possibly have. I love her so much. It's awesome. And still, everyone is going to leave some kind of imprint on their child, because nobody is perfectly non-neurotic. So and children are such a sensitive and super responsive mirror to who you are as a person. So the smallest distortion in your ego, basically, or however you want to call it, like the little neurotic tendency that you have that your friends don't notice, your children will become a mirror to that, and
copy and paste.
And then you have to live with that.
That's how a lot of people work on themselves. Like, they never worked on themselves, and then they have a child, and they don't want the child to have those traits. So they're basically like copying and pasting. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to fix that on myself. Otherwise my child is going to have that. So it's a whole spiritual journey to have a child.
The only way you can do that is by doing what you do, and doing, like, whatever helps you heal is what going to make people a better parent. What doesn't work is just like remembering things to do to be a good parent. Like, that's just too many people, I feel, think that they have to remember a list of things that, is good to do as a parent and your child needs. And like, it's just a list of to-dos. And if it's not authentic, your child's not going to even have the right experience.
Like they copy you. Whatever you do, they're gonna copy you. So if you want them to be a good person, be a good person. So it's all inverted nowadays. It's like, oh, but I tell my child that she should do like this and that. I'm like, no, don't tell her. Just do it in your life, and the child's gonna copy.
Do it and actually mean it, because if you do it because you think you have to, then your child is gonna copy. I have to do good things in order to.
Yes, that's like another level.
It's so subtle. You can't fake it. That's actually beautiful about it. That's like, you can't fake anything with your kids. They're just gonna copy it. You can do what looks like a good parent on the outside, or like instill good values that you embody. But if you don't actually believe them, if you just do it because you want to look like a good person to other people, then you're gonna have a child who also does that, or the opposite of that, or something. People pleaser, yeah, like anything can happen. But I'm so, like, I had one thing that I wanted to share, is that I got an insight in my last mushroom trip, actually. And this is not something that I generated from my own mind. Let's face it, I've read about this in books, right? But it just sort of clicked for me when you talked about the exercise you did on, like, the feelings with your dad. It's like, a lot of people talk about, like, repressed feelings, right? Mm-hmm. And so, things in your childhood that would have felt really intense, and because they felt like so intense, that would have gotten suppressed. And, a lot of people try to do work on themselves and then look for repressed feelings, and they're just not there because you haven't felt them yet. And that's the shift that sort of clicked for me. Like, there's no, like, the pain that you feel when you process childhood trauma is not old pain. In a sense, it's pain that hasn't happened yet. Like, the first time you actually go back and feel that, it's the first time you feel it. And that's so different. And that's why you can't just go looking for old painful memories, because if those things are really a part of your shadow or your trauma or whatever's still bothering you, then the feelings that you would have to actually process that are the first time you will have those feelings. That's why people haven't processed it yet. And that's, for example, I was going over like a scenario with something that happened with me and my dad, right? And it's such a simple, trivial memory. I'm 6 years old and I see my dad sitting at the table and he's on the phone. I don't know what he's doing, but he just burst out crying. And I just see my dad crying, saying things like he doesn't know what he's going to do. And he doesn't know how we're going to make money because we only have this and that. And something about he's going to burn it all down. And I saw this desperation in my father. And I remember this. I've always remembered this. This is not a repressed memory. I just remember this as, yeah, my dad, he cried that one time and it was annoying. Like, like that's the level of emotion that I remembered having, because when I went back again, I'm like, oh my God, there's much more to this.
Fear, right? For
desperation and like, this is sort of like, I'm looking up to you as a helpless child, and if you don't know what to do, how am I supposed to know what to do? So this really like helpless, if you don't know how to navigate life, Dad, then I'm gonna die because I have only you to learn from.
Yeah, your safety depends on him, and then suddenly he's falling apart. So you're like, okay, I'm not safe. If he's not safe, I am not safe.
Exactly. And I felt that for the first time, and I broke down crying again. And now this memory is so much richer to me because really new feelings have been added that I should have had at the time, but there wasn't the space to have those feelings. Yeah.
That is very deep, because I'm doing the exercise and my sister is doing the same exercise. And for her, I shared with her my main feelings, which is mostly like anxiety, fear, anger, and just the feelings that I feel nowadays. And she's like, well, I haven't felt that. And what I notice is that she's not there yet. She has like a couple, 2 or 3 feelings. And for me, if I keep writing, it keeps going, right? And this exercise is huge. I'm like, I'm gonna write a book with that. And she's like, it's okay, you are doing the work. I'm like, okay, let's do, because you need to basically rewrite your subconscious, right? That like when I release all the feelings of sadness when my dad was abused, so I need to rewrite the whole thing and release. And my sister, she's like, why? I haven't felt angry. And as humans, anger is so useful. We need to allow ourselves to feel anger, because otherwise we don't have the action afterwards. And not only anger, all the feelings, we need to feel the full range. And then and she was like, we went through a lot of stuff in our childhood, like a lot. My dad tried to kill my mom my whole childhood. So we just watched, like he tried to run over her with knife, with gun. And we're just like the spectators. He wouldn't do anything to us, but he would do to my mom. And my sister is the oldest one. She's 5 years older than me. So she experienced trauma for longer than me, because they divorced when I was 13 years old. So I had a break, right? But she went on like for 20 years of her life, just like watching. And she was born before. And I told her, and now in her life, like you need to wake up and allow yourself to feel this anger, because there's no way that you saw a lot of things and you don't feel anger. And because she lacks the action part of like doing, like getting their energy and like get going and moving. And I see that she doesn't allow herself to feel, and it's her process, right? But for my feelings, is like they just keep going, and I'm like, if I write here, it's just gonna go on and on and on, because I felt I was crying my whole childhood. Like if you see pictures of me, I'm always like this, because I was always crying. So I was very sensitive, but I see what you mean, because we repress all this stuff, and if you don't feel, it's always there. It's just like a big box no, it's a backpack full of stuff that you carry around, and that's why people explode, right? Because eventually that needs to be released. And if you carry that thing, you are going to be that human being that the slightest situation, you burst, you explode, and you hurt everyone around you. So it's healthy to feel anger, but it's difficult also to acknowledge, like to go through that process of like, okay, this happened and I did feel, because it's our inner child, right? It's not us of nowadays. but the feeling is there still, even though we have that child within us that someone needs to attend to that child, like you did with your inner child when you were 6 years old. So
Yeah.
if you don't do the work, if you don't investigate and rethink about that memory and go back there, you carry that your whole life and you don't even know that is there.
You don't even know that it's there, and there will be so many very clever traps that your mind sets in order to distract you or divert you from even getting a sense that it might be there. So that's why I think it's so difficult, for example, for you to get your sister to even admit that, you know, there's a lot of anger that she might have to feel. It's because the whole system is built with all these safety switches to not even go to the place where it might be true. And that's because we don't know what it is. Like when something, like, for example, you were always crying in your childhood. And I think that's slightly better than not even feeling it at the time, because that means that your brain has decided, if we actually feel this, we're going to die. So let's put this on the to-do list for, you know, later. And that becomes like a huge trauma then, because you don't even know what you might have to feel. And all you have left then is this sort of sense that it might be something really terrible. And when like unsafety are fully felt as a child, like that's actually really dangerous. So it's good that you don't feel them. But if you put them in a box, like you said, and don't feel them, then you also don't know what they are. So as an adult, it's still going to seem like maybe there's something there, but it's going to kill me. So I'm not going to go there. And that's why it feels a lot scarier to process that stuff than it actually is. And that's what you see again and again. You've probably noticed it. Is like when you actually work through it and feel some of those unfelt things, like, oh, actually, I can handle it. Actually, I can handle it, but I still remember it as something that I can't handle and it's going to kill me because that's the last time I looked at it.
Yeah, thinking about that, we're three women, right? Three sisters. My middle sister, it's interesting how every human being deals with it differently. My older sister, she was the peacemaker, right? The one that like, okay, everything is fine, because she had to be mature sooner because the shit show was happening, right? Someone needed to be mature, and though someone was not my parents, so she had to grow faster. So she's very mature, she's very responsible, so she holds this place where I need to take care of everyone, because she was an adult earlier than, like, she didn't have a childhood. And my middle sister, she's totally different than me. But when we were 13, but the reason why my parents decided to divorce was because my middle sister, when you talk about all like the body just like accumulating all this stuff, her body basically accumulated all this and shut off. I remember me talking to her, and it was like I was looking into nothingness. Like her eyes were like that. She was standing, but she was gone at the same time. And then we brought her to the hospital. She was in coma for like 4 months. We thought she was going to die. And the doctor was like, she cannot be under stress anymore. She's gone through, like, it's like her brain accumulated all of that and shut off and said, okay, I need to stop to process everything, or I cannot move on. And then she had to start taking medication. And I feel like nowadays she's happily married, she has a child, and I feel like that time that her brain shut off, she processed a lot of stuff, and that's how she was able to live her life better. And my way was a different way than my older sister, and it's different how for every human being, we're so different. We all have our own mechanism, right? Our genetics are different, our way of dealing with the situation, we process so differently. It's for me, I feel like I'm still, but like going back to the rage that I have within me, I'm like, that's all from my childhood. I was like that when I was little too. I was recording a video yesterday. There was this uncle that he would always bug me. He would always be like, what are you saying? Like, he would touch me. And once I pushed him and he broke his leg, and the whole family was like, what the fuck? Why did you do that? Like, you can just talk to him and tell him to stop. And I'm like, I use my words, but he didn't listen to me. So that's what I'm going to do from now on. So I've always had this energy. And there's a study that was done to those Gabor Mate, like those children that they were locked inside this place that like someone kidnapped them, like 13 kids. They were inside this basement, and there were like many reactions from those kids, and all of them were traumatized, of course, but the ones that were less traumatized were the ones that tried to escape, and eventually they actually escaped. But there were like 4 kids from those 13 kids that tried to escape, that did something. Some other ones, they would just cry, 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 and some other ones, they would freeze. So it's like fight, flight, or freeze, right? So depending on the reaction that you have to the trauma, it helps your body process. And fighting against it, I feel like I see this in my childhood. Like if kids talks to me, I would hit them. Of course, it's not okay to do that, right? But I broke a girl's glasses once because she was making jokes about me. So I was very like, I fought for myself. And I feel like that was very important for me, because nowadays I really stand up for myself when someone's doing something. And it's a whole process, but it's healthy to have a reaction instead of just freezing. Because what Gabor Mato says is that if you just freeze, the trauma is there and it needs to be released. Like a part of you needs to get up and do something about. And the less traumatized children were the ones that tried to escape, and they actually escaped.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because what you find when you start unraveling, any sort of childhood trauma, whether big or small, is like usually first you have to let yourself feel the anger, and then the rest comes, because there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of just like a lot of different emotions, but the anger usually comes first. It's like you feel nothing about it, you feel nothing about it, you feel nothing about it. Well, maybe I'm a little bit angry. And then you encourage someone to like, okay, maybe you're a little bit angry. Could that be? Like, okay, feel that. And then the rage comes. And then after the rage is released, then people are able to cry about it, which I believe to be the thing that's actually healing, is to release the tears. But indeed, it's healthy to have that reaction. And you can also catch up on that later. If you, for example, weren't even able to do something about it at the moment that it happened, then you have a bigger trauma probably, but you can still get to that place of doing something about it later, and that will release the grief. But it's such a good point you made, that the anger is a really important stage.
And it's a whole process. I was gonna say something else, I forgot. Let me see if I go back. Yeah, I remember just the darkness, right? Our dark side, right? The patterns, the traumas, it's difficult to look at it. And the first step is to acknowledge, okay, I do have I was in this ayahuasca ceremony, and I'm like, okay, I have this very shitty side of me that I tell people what to do. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to look at it. And ayahuasca's like, yeah, you need to look at it, because that's the way you treat yourself too. That's how, like, you are very hard on people because you're hard on yourself. And the result of being hard on yourself is I'm having issues with my body. And ayahuasca's like, once you respect your own process, you're going to respect people's processes. And it's part of my work, right? I wake up people. I have that fiery energy of like, let's get going, let's transform, and let's see the darkness, because I am like that with myself. And it's difficult to look at this side of me, because it's something that I've been ignoring my whole life, like telling people what to do. It's even part of the culture in Brazil that like we get so much into other people's life, like even family, we have so much intimacy. We're always telling people, and I was there with my sister, and she appreciates because I help her with stuff, but at the same time I need to respect her process, right? I cannot force things. And just looking at that and accepting that I do have this side of me that is my darkness, because it's in the dark, because I reject, I'm ashamed about, I'm in denial, I don't want to look at it. And just bringing the darkness to the light, it's fucking hard. It's hard. We don't want to accept, right?
Yeah, that's fucking hard. I think I can relate, because the reason that I started coaching people a couple of years ago is probably because I liked telling people what to do in like the best way possible, right? I liked helping people, and there were so many people who said, "Oh my God, since you told me to do this, I had this insight. It really helped." But there's also like this sort of really like pushy, kind of like get your shit together now sort of energy behind it. And I do the same thing to myself. And I didn't learn this from my parents. I really developed this because I didn't get enough of that from my parents. As far as I can tell, that's what happened. My parents were super relaxed, and because they were super relaxed, part of me went, well, if they're super relaxed and have no expectations of me, then I will have to create high expectations of me, or nothing will ever happen in my life. So I need to become super self-critical and ambitious and be my own strict parent, basically. And I just had this really pushing myself energy that got me so far, actually, in life, because I had a lot of social anxiety, and I had, I still have ADHD, but also really just, social anxiety, really just an inability to just talk to people and express myself honestly. It was just something I had to break through and break through and break through again. And so it got me really far, but also it was like this you have to get your shit together now. And if you have a limit, then you have to break through the limit right away, because it's not okay for you to have a process. You need to have the result and already be there right now, because life is short and you're running out of time. And I realized this is actually the way I've been, also I've been projecting this on other people too. They have this one insight, but then I already know the next insight they're supposed to have. And how do I get it's possible? It becomes this really toxic situation where I'm not able to see.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because it sounds very much like my inner voice.
I thought it would be, yeah.
But also, it's like you said, it's what brought us here, It's how we help people too, because, and that's what they say, your mess is your medicine. Because you went to those dark places and you needed to heal from that, it's the wounded healer, right? If you don't go through all of that, if you don't suffer deeply, you don't come out with the gold. And it's like Joseph Campbell says, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So in the mess, in the pain, we find the most gold. In the darkness where we are ashamed to go, that's where the best things in life are. That's where our strengths are. And that's how we coach people, because at the same time, it's the sword, how do they say? The two-edged sword that you can use to help people. At the same time, you are hard on people. And society needs people like us. Otherwise, there are two kinds, right? The ones that are just accepting things as they are, and it's fine. It's a balance. But what I see also, that it's not sustainable for us to have this approach with ourselves. It's not sustainable in the long run, because I feel like it's a shadow of stage orange, which is like a hardcore personal development, and we need to do as fast as we can, and we need to do the best way we can. So it's like we take a personal development to the next level. And that's
can you allow yourself to have a process? Can you allow yourself to be an imperfect work in progress, right? Can you be imperfect? Can you be okay? I could not do that. I could not. I still have an addiction, I still drink too much coffee or something like that. It's well, can't have that. I still eat some unhealthy food sometimes. Can't have that. Have to quit all of that at once. And intense cycles of trying to get in extremely, perfect habits and fixing everything at once, because it all has to happen right now. And then it fails because it's too much of a change at once. And then I basically just react by sort of picking up the pieces and trying even harder next time. And now we're going to fix this too, and you're going to have a perfect gym routine. You're going to have a perfect diet. You're going to quit smoking and quit coffee and quit this and quit that. I did that so many times before I actually got the message.
It's an insight that I've been having this week, but 2 weeks ago, I was doing this devotion practice that I set for 40 days. And one day I sat there, and it's so funny. This altar and this whole meditation devotion practice is a technology. Okay. It's basically where you have a telephone with the astral realm. They can call you. And then as soon as I sat in the altar, I received a clear message. The slower you do things, the better it is. And I'm that contradicts with my whole life, everything that I can think, I need to get moving. And then of course I didn't listen, right? I'm like, what is this really a message? And then comes my ego, it's like, no, that's just keep going, do your thing, be productive, do everything. And after 2 days I got really sick, and then I was forced to rest. And I'm like, okay, that's a sign. And the message that I received was also because how are enlightened people, they do things very slow, they have no hurry, right? And then I've been questioning, what is happiness? And the response that not the response, but like the conclusion that I've gotten to is that it's the quality of my life is going to be according to how slow I do things, how much present I am in why I'm doing the things, right? And I start looking at people around me that are happy, not successful, happy, right? That have a fulfilling life, and I can see that they have that radiance, that like they're glowing because they do have that substantial life. And the qualities about those people is that they take their time. They do things very slowly. If they sit with you for coffee, they listen to you, they're present with themselves. So it's basically what we're saying, like about respecting our own process. And it's a challenge for me because I'm always doing stuff. I'm creating video, I'm editing videos, and my friend was doing massage in my wrist. And like, good Lord, Laisa, what are you doing with your hand? And I'm like, I need to do everything. I'm editing videos all the time. I'm recording videos and interviewing people, and that and it's not like my body is talking to me that it's not sustainable, right? And I've been receiving all the messages about slowing down, because there won't be a point where we're perfect. There just won't. Like, we can like get the gym down and all the other things, but we're never going to get to the point. So we might as well start actually living now, right? And being present. But it is a huge challenge. I think it's one of my biggest lessons in life.
I've read a bit about in a book, The Primal Scream. I also sent you some pages from the book.
Yeah, I love that book.
There's a chapter. Yeah, it's great. We can talk about that a lot. But there's a chapter in there that describes people who use that method to process all of their trauma. So, and what those people are like. And that's so fascinating because, it's easy to get the impression that, there's always more to heal. There's always more, like if you do some light type of shadow work, like there's always new things coming up. And what Arthur Janov, like the author of that book, actually says, is like, no, if you work hard at it, like in a couple of years, you're done. Like your childhood, your infanthood is processed. And then you're like this really balanced person who is not overly driven, doesn't have to like do things all the time, doesn't have to achieve things all the time, but also is not overly passive, right? Is not, doesn't tend towards depression, doesn't tend towards, sort of like sitting back and being passive. There's just this healthy balance of like, yeah, they want to do things, but in a healthy pace. And they don't like desperately search for meaning. They kind of find meaning in small things. For example, like they might have a simple job, but it's meaningful to them. And it doesn't have to be like a huge thing, a huge achievement that looks good to other people. They might even work on a farm or something like that. And like, that's a meaningful thing for them to do. And just reading that, it also kind of hit me that, yeah, I'm still, neurotic a lot because I want to achieve, and I want to achieve more than I want to be healthy, apparently. Like that's what my actions actually tell me, that it's more important for me to achieve my dreams than that I actually live my life in a healthy way. And maybe you can relate to that or not, but
for sure. I feel like it's society nowadays too. The values of society are stage orange, especially here where I'm at. Is like productivity, effectiveness, money, success, status, like fame, and just like getting all those things in. And I feel like it's forced on us because we're a product of our environment. So we kind of try to match the energy of society. And it's impossible. It's the rat race. Like you die. It's walking towards a cliff. So we all have this within us. And it's part of embodying stage orange and seeing that like that's not all there is, that you can to have quality of life, you cannot be achieving all the time. Right? You need to, because how is life if we keep going like that? Like the body doesn't cannot handle. The body struggles, right? So we see that is not sustainable. But still we need to embody stage orange, and we need to have some kind of financial independency to be able to move towards other stuff and transcend. But it's so easy to get lost in the stage orange and like, I'm the winner, I'm going to do as much personal development as I can, I'm going to live that crazy life. And I'm shocked by how long it takes to embody the stages of spiral dynamics. I had to study now for my channel, and I saw so many areas where I'm still stuck after 5 years of watching the video when I first watched, and I'm like, wow, that's a long time, and we
Like,
evolve as an organism.
Do you have an example of that?
Hmm?
Do you have an example of that?
Like for me, I've always been very spiritual and just like, oh, meditate, and Neil says go do the work, like go like start your business. And that's me starting my channel now. And I knew that I wanted to create a channel and I wanted to coach people 5 years ago. And did I do that? No, because I was in my stable job, very comfortable, doing my superficial spirituality. Because real spirituality, you have financial independency to be able to transcend, right? The matrix. Because if you are still running after the cheese, you are part of the matrix. So to do real hard work spirituality, I know it's possible. You can go live in the middle of nowhere, but it's very rare that you are a monk and you go to the mountains, you know? The reality is that you live in normal society, and to live in normal society, you need to be part of society. To exit the matrix, you need to enter and immerse yourself in the matrix and play the game. And I've seen myself running from and judging people who have money and like, oh, money is not everything. And like in getting to a point of like, if I want to do real spirituality, if I want to evolve as a human being, I need to do I need to get my finances down, and not only finances, but the basics that you were talking about, like that. Let's get those things down, because otherwise we're just stuck, right?
Yeah, and I feel like it's also something that psychedelics often tell me. The last time I did mushrooms, it basically told me, please get your shit together so that we can get to more important stuff. Like, you're still struggling to get your business started and worrying about dynamics in your relationship and these insecurities that you have. And the message that I got was, just get your shit together, please. Your stupid human bullshit. So that we can, go to the galaxy and explore interesting things. And of
with
course, that's
aerodynamics, you mean?
Yeah. No, well, I mean, that's a very like mushroom perspective to have.
Yeah.
Is like, let's go visit other worlds. So that and to do that is like, we need to leave your stupid human bullshit behind. So just put your affairs in order, make sure you make enough money, make sure you're not toxic in your relationship, and then stop worrying about it. But you can also apply that same mindset to like growing in spiral dynamics stages, or like spiritual work, or developing yourself in any sort of way. Like, yes, your basic needs to be in order. Basic needs need to be in order.
Yeah.
And yeah,
it's so true.
I get so jealous of people who don't see that as like a big problem. Maybe you can recognize that some people can just kind of effortlessly start a business, effortlessly make money, effortlessly get a lot of clients that just do it, and it just seems to work immediately. And then you're like, oh, well, cool, I did it. Now I'm going to move to this country or something like that. And it just seems effortless.
It's not effortless. Maybe for you that you're looking at it, it seems effortless. But I feel like it's about believing in yourself, right? If you think that that's possible, it becomes like because that reality already exists. You just need to bring it to you. You need to have a vision. It's like Leo always like trust your vision and hold on to your vision. It's going to take a while. And what I've seen is that it doesn't even take that long. Like, I created my channel, I've been consistent for a year, and things are like unfolding like really beautifully because I do have the passion and I have my vision, and things unfold very fast once you have the purpose and the vision. But yeah, I feel like it's just trusting yourself, and it's very silly, it's very cliche.
What actually was meant was that
for some people it's
extremely high amount of struggle with that, right? And that also appeared to me as a little hint of something neurotic that was going on. Because, as you said, it's not effortless, but it's also not extremely difficult.
But I have an insight about that. Because, like, do those people have the same depth as you have? Because, like, Jung says that, like, if the tree goes down, like its roots go down to hell, it's gonna rise to the sky and to the light. So my question is that those people, they figure out, they have their business, they like, are they a person that can hold deep conversation like we're having right now? Are they like deep into spirituality? Do they have that soul content inside them? And because there's no way that, because like you want to get to this high place, right? And you are down here. You want to get from A to B, and your vision is crazy. You want to be that person, and then life sends you all these struggles for you to get there. And because you go through all those struggles, is that you're going to get there. Without those struggles, you don't get. But our mindset is always like, why am I going through that? Why do I need to go through that? And I've had this victim mindset for a long time in my life of like, why is this happening? Like, I was abused by my ex in Brazil and then abused here again. And I'm like, good Lord. And then now I'm like, okay, this is what's polishing me to get to B. And that can only happen this way with all those struggles. And now my approach is, okay, I need to move. Let's move. Send more. It's not enough because I want to get to an even higher place. And once you go towards the light, the closest you get to the light, the more darkness that is. So if you ask for light in your life, if you ask for enlightenment, the universe is going to send you all sorts of lessons. So when you talk to me like that, which means that the universe is sending you all the lessons for you to get to a higher place. And when you talk about those people, a lot of people, they're happy with their life because they are getting the low-hanging fruits. And we want the high one. So we're always unsatisfied and we want to get higher.
That's beautiful, yeah. I actually got a lot from that when you said that. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, and
it's like, that's what I mean. Like,
really
I could
honoring
look,
your
when I started
work,
out,
right?
I could look at other people and I could see like, some people have just a lot less struggle than I do with the same thing. Why is that? Why am I sabotaging myself? Why am I procrastinating? Why do I do this and that to like block myself and have this enormous struggle where it seems like I'm getting in my own way? But as you said, those people are not supposed to they get their challenge and their sharpening of the sword from other things. And we all need some sort of struggle, some sort of almost, I forgot the word for that, but like we need something to sharpen our personality and
polish,
our depth
right?
of character.
We need
polish,
to
yeah,
get
exactly.
the hits, right? To have the marble all like beautiful, and the life is gonna smash too. And like today is the Woman's Day, right? And I woke up and I had this insight of how grateful I am to have gone through all the bad relationships that I have gone, because otherwise I would not value the ground that I stand on now, because I've gone through so much. And if I didn't know how painful it is, I wouldn't be able to support women. I have a group of 300 women on WhatsApp, and I would not be able to hold this ground for myself and other women if I hadn't gone through all of that. So I was just grateful for all my bad relationships. And I was like, that's a nice insight to have, you know, and it's about honoring your journey too, because only you know the things that you went through. People don't know. They have no idea. And whatever you went through is going to bring you to a higher place. And the more darkness there is, psychedelics bring darkness, ayahuasca brings darkness, the more shadow, right? So if you have a lot of struggles in your life, it means that you are closer to the light, right? So it's difficult, you know.
You got what you can handle. You got what you can handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had another insight about I think spiral dynamics. I need to start writing down, otherwise I forget. About integrating stage orange. Yeah, about the basics. Okay, I'm recording a video yesterday and I'm like, okay, I just did an ayahuasca ceremony and I'm gonna talk about very basic stuff in a video. And then in the beginning of the video, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not here to talk about aliens, about how I contacted beings of other galaxies. I'm here to talk about how to connect with your body. like basic stuff. And then we got out of the ceremony on Saturday, and then Sunday in the morning, my friend's like, yo, Liza, I need to eat more fruits. And I'm like, yeah, and I need to take more care of my body. And then we start laughing so hard because it's so basic, you know? How are we going to get to transcendence if we don't even take care of the basics? And it's funny how, like, imagine for the consciousness of the psychedelics, they need to be very patient with us. Like, they want to get us to a really high place, but we are still in the basic stuff. And that's where we're at. It's okay. It's part of human evolution. And like you were saying, like, take care of the basics, go to the gym, eat healthy, you know? And Leo talks about that a lot in his, like, a lot of men are like, they create in the forum, like, topics like, oh, let's do no fap for like 2 months. And Leo was like, no, go have sex. After you have sex, you can do enlightenment work. And a lot of people want to do spiritual work when they don't have the basics down. And it's the Abraham Maslow pyramid. If you don't take care of the basics, you cannot get there. You cannot skip stages, right, of spiral dynamics. You do need to participate in society. And the spiritual ego thinks that I don't need any of that. But you cannot be a human without being a human, right? You need to actually play the game of life. And yesterday I was going to record a video, and like, I'm surprised by the fact that I don't have deep insights. I have basic insights about like listening to your body, you know, putting good stuff in your body. And I'm like, wow, that's so funny. And I was just laughing because that's where we're at. And it's okay, you know, we need to have compassion too with our own journey. And a lot of people are there too. It's surprising that we go. Terence McKenna was saying, he said, I wish more people did DMT the same amount of times that I've done, because I've talked to aliens. He's like, every time I get there, like when he sees the aliens, they get so surprised to see me. They do a whole feast, they do a carnival because they want to talk to me. But I get so shocked by seeing them that I cannot really have a conversation, right? But he's like, I wish more people had the balls to do a psychedelic trip, to go farther, right? To have contact with these intelligent beings. But we're not there yet. We have a lot of basic stuff. Like, as a society, we are still babies, right? And even though people like to say, like, we have a glimpse of God in the psychedelic trip, but most of the time the psychedelics are in a symbiosis system with us, like just trying to help us with the basics so we can help them too. Because if we don't take care of our basics, we won't take care of nature. And it's just going to go on and on. So what psychedelics are trying to do, they're not trying to help us because they're good humans. They're trying to do an exchange. I take care of you and you take care of me. And they take care of us by like, okay, having those insights. I need to eat more fruits. I need to take care of my body. I need to make money. You know, a lot of people in the spiritual path, like, oh, I need to go do hardcore meditation. Like, no, do your basic stuff. Do your basic stuff, and then you go after like the enlightenment.
Start by eating a salad. Yeah. Start by eating a salad. You want to go to 21-day Vipassana meditation retreat? Did you eat your vegetables today? It's so,
yeah.
But the basics are not easy. They're just boring. I think that's what it is. That we want things to be interesting. We want to like engage our capacity for figuring things out in our journey of development. And if it's just, you know, trying to eat healthy and sleep enough again and again and again, the mind kind of goes crazy with that. Like, is that all I'm doing? Is that all I'm supposed to? Is that all I'm here for? Where's the puzzle? Where's the complicated thing to work through in order to get me where I want to go? But it's just the boring work that enables you to sustain that path.
But it's boring because we're not enlightened, right? Have you seen like enlightened people? They are fascinated by everything. Like, have you been fascinated by a strawberry in a psychedelic trip? Like, wow, that's so amazing that like how things work. You get so fascinated. And what I feel like is that we're disconnected from our body. That's why it's boring. Because if we're fully in our body and conscious, it is a blessing to be here. It is magnificent that we can be in a human body, that we can have sex, we can eat food, we can play around, we can jump, we can dance. And the sacredness of that was lost because of our traumas and all this stuff, that it's not really fun to be in our body because we have a lot of stuff to process. So it is boring when we do things because we have to do. It's like your mom saying to eat your vegetables. You're like, no, I want to play. Yeah, we want to do more interesting stuff and we want to have more fun. But before, we need to do the work. And I feel like the more we do the work, the more our life, the more our happiness, right? Our pleasure to just be the mundane things are very special when you work on yourself. Like just sitting and reading a book, like you said, like being on a farm and just doing those basic things. Once you process everything, might be awesome. I'm not there yet, but I feel like we think that it's boring to be a human because we were not really human. We haven't tapped into our potential. So it's
tapped your potential. Oh my God, I'm gonna jump into that because that's such a rich topic. Is like, what is your potential? Like so much of that is just having your full being, having access to that, and that means that you're sensing and feeling so much more than you would be if you were still heavily repressed. I've watched this enlightened person on YouTube talk about her journey, and one thing she mentioned was she didn't realize how much therapy and healing and trauma processing that she had to do in order to get to that enlightened stage where she was supposed to go. And I was so happy to see that, because that's kind of my message, or that's kind of the thing that I like to stand for, is like, hey, don't forget, everyone, or like almost everyone, has childhood trauma. You can't just go and be super spiritual and pretend it's not there. You have to work through that, or you're not going to be a very balanced, enlightened person. That's just, all of that needs to clear, and it takes a few years. Even if you go super hard at it, it takes a few years. So I was super happy to see an enlightened being, to some extent, talk about like, yeah, that's something that you really have to do. It's not just the practice, it's also the clearing and the healing. And I'm a little bit lost now, because that's not actually what I was planning to say. There was something else and I forgot. Yeah.
You need to start writing down why I'm talking.
Parts of your personality back. And that's why life becomes less boring, less mundane. So when we repress trauma, we also repress actually parts of ourselves that have experiences, preferences, talents, just like really pieces of our personality get completely segregated, split off from the rest, because they contain the sensitive memories that would cause us to feel those things if we thought about them. So those memories have to be segregated, and then part of our personality goes with that. And then we feel incomplete, and we feel like we need things in life to make us complete. And we feel that we don't have certain things, and then we are attracted to those things in other people, or we project them onto, some sort of goal that you could achieve. Like if you could have this job title, you would have this, or if you could marry this person, you would have that. And all you're really looking for is the qualities that are shut off inside your own mind or psyche, because they're connected to the parts that had to go into the shadow. And that's a little bit connected to what Jung also believes. He's called like the animus and the anima. If those like repressed parts somewhat are along the axis of the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. The left hemisphere is like the creative, intuitive, and the right is more like the logical, technical, more masculine type qualities. If you develop in a way where you have to...
It's the opposite, right?
Yeah, maybe it's the opposite. Well, anyways, could be that I'm misremembering that, but I remembered it as left brain being, feeling, creative, intuitive, things like that. Maybe it's the opposite. But if you grow up like shutting that part off for whatever reason, like that gets repressed, then you will grow up as a person who cannot access their creative side, who cannot access their intuition, who really has a lot of trouble surrendering. doesn't have a lot of emotional intelligence. And then they grow up thinking that that's their personality. That is just who they are. And there's nothing much to do about that. And like the only thing you can do is kind of find your other half in another person, even though if you would process the unfelt feelings that are blocking you from accessing that part, and you could be complete as a person. And there's, for example, like so many stereotypes that are actually real, such as, engineers or software engineers. I'm a software engineer with very low emotional intelligence. That's what I was. I was a software engineer. I was into computers. I was into logic. I was into math. And I didn't understand people. I didn't understand how to interact socially. I didn't understand how social dynamics worked or other people's emotions. I just didn't have that. And that's what I thought. I don't have that. And then I went into, I have to learn tricks in order to appear like I'm a social person, in order to teach myself how to do things that make you likable. And you build this whole fake persona kind of because you think you have to. And then you start to process a little bit of the blocked memories. And then it's like, this was there all along. You have these horror-opening experiences. And you discover, well, I actually do have all the qualities that I think I was lacking. They were just kind of shut off. And that also happens with people who, for example, very creative people who think they can't do math. Everybody can do math. Mm-hmm. Or everyone has the potential to be able to do math. And there's some people who they can't understand it. When they look at a math equation, their brain just shuts off. It's just not accessible. And I don't believe that that's the limit to their potential. I believe everyone has a part of their brain that can do that. But if a lot of trauma is associated with the part that can do that, but also has a lot of memory connections to traumatic events, then you're not going to be able to do that. But that can be restored. That can be restored by doing trauma work. And then you become a more complete person. And it's not just talents. It's also experiences, sensing, feeling, perceiving on a broader bandwidth than is normal for your human experience. You get so sensitive that the more mundane things, eating, walking, in the sun, become much more rich and much more interesting. And then that's how I'm going to tie it back to what you said about boring. And it's actually not boring, because if you're enlightened, it's super interesting. Everything is super interesting and fascinating and rich. If you are able to literally free up more nerve cells in your brain, in your that to perceive, then everything becomes rich and fascinating, and you don't need anything extra. You don't need to, you don't need to watch porn. You can just have normal sex. You don't need to become a billionaire. You can just make enough money that you can do what you want, and all these extra things that you need to go away, because life becomes much more rich and meaningful on levels that you really cannot imagine as your previous neurotic self. And that's so fascinating to me.
I feel like this whole journey is about what I like what you said about removing what not removing, but integrating into who we are. But I feel like part of this integration, it's also getting rid of what we're not. And I feel like my whole method, my coaching method, is all towards, okay, let's remove all that society told you that you should do, all that the church told you that you should do, your parents told.
Oh, that's you. Yeah. That's you. You're applying your wisdom to work with people.
Yes, that's what I do. And what I see, it's
and now you're evolving, and then also your method of working with people has to evolve now, right?
That's my mess became my medicine, and because what I see, it's people don't even know their values. Why are you alive for? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why do you do the things that you do, right? So I feel like part of my work is just to erase the social conditioning and all the ideologies that people have for them to get to their core. And once they get to the core, but basically, in my coach session, I play the devil's advocate. Are you really sure this is your value? Isn't that what your parents told you that you should do? So I'm kind of they give me a vision and I kind of smash the vision and like, is it really, how is this vision connected to your values? But why are those your values? Show me a situation in your life where this was your value and you were very happy about it. And it's hard work to erase, because like even me, until some time ago, I'm like, yeah, I want to get married and have kids. And then I'm like, do I really want to have kids? I'm like, no, I do have my kids around. My channel is my child. Like I have other ways of expressing my creativity, and maybe I'm gonna have child, but there's so much that was put onto me that I never questioned. I just swallowed the pill without asking what is it for. And part of becoming an integrated human, it's not really getting more stuff. And I always say that like my courses, my coaching is not about adding stuff on your mind, because we're overwhelmed by Leo calls the mental masturbation all the time, like podcasts and books, and just putting like everyone has a book that is going to change your life, and everyone has a course that is the key to all the problems. And the real work is very difficult. Like you said, it's a few enlightened people reached enlightenment through hard work. A lot of them had spontaneous awakening, and like Eckhart Tolle and even Matt Kahn. So they cannot talk about enlightenment when they didn't do all the hard work that it takes. So it's very easy for them to say that psychedelics are not useful when they did use psychedelics. They just had an spontaneous awakening, right? So it's really, really nice to meet this woman like you met, and she says like, oh, it's hard work, because we try to avoid the hard work and we think that things are going to just show up, and it's hard work to erase all of that and get to the core of who you are. And when we go into a psychedelic experience, people always ask me, but is it gonna make this drug is gonna make me feel good? And I always say the drug doesn't do anything. It's not like you are taking something that is making you happy or excited. It's just who you really are. It's your essence. You are supposed to feel like that all the time. But because of all that was put on top of you, you don't feel good. You feel like things are boring. But once you erase all, like the ego is like this cape that we have around our body with a lot of traumas that we carry around. Once you get out of that, you can actually feel happy. And not that you're going to feel happy all the time. Enlightenment is basically equanimity. You just feel neutralized. Like things happen and you're just like in that peaceful state, because you know that like you don't go all the way up or all the way down.
Which doesn't sound very exciting for a neurotic like me, you know?
Yeah.
And
for
again,
me now.
it sounds like, oh, okay. Yeah, I actually don't want that. I want the peaks and the valleys. And that was going through my mind as you were talking, because you're so right. And at the same time, I can already see both of us losing clients because they're like, well, they're just going to teach us to be boring, I guess. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to achieve and get these huge peaks that I need, because that's how we got wired. I'm interested in, how do you do that? Like how do you prefer to do that? Like erase conditioning, as you said, and also has something changed? Like has something shifted in the way you used to do that, and how you do that now?
First, I want to talk about because like you want to have all those things, right, to reach those states. But if you really think, how would be a perfect day of your life? You wake up, you have you have a slow morning, you have breakfast, you read a book, like you do those silly things, which is like, oh wow, I'm doing all of that to have that mundane, peaceful day. And if you see like what really your soul desires, because we have, that's again, right, to me, erasing your mind, like, is it really what you want, or is it like you are going with the flow, you are getting a lot out of that right now in your life, and you think that that's the end point? Like what do you really want? What does your soul desire? Because we have all those desires that we think that are ours. There are all those thoughts in the collective just fluctuating above our heads, and we get the thoughts, right? And oh my God, this is my thought, it's what I want. And you're taught, you were domesticated to think in a certain way. We're trained, right? I don't know if you know the work of Bruce Lipton, but he says that 0 until 7 years old, we're just absorbing. We're in download mode. So as children play pretending. Now I'm pretending that I'm a nurse. Now I'm pretending that I'm a dad. So they're playing to be humans. pretending to be someone to just so they can be someone when they grow up. And there's so much that we learned, that we absorbed, that we downloaded, and to install a new software or a new operational system, you need to erase the old one. And I told my friend that this last ayahuasca ceremony was like that. It was presented with this action, you're gonna erase everything that you've done in the past. Do you want to continue? And I went to yes. And like to have something new, you need to make up space, right? And to create that vision, that crazy vision, that maybe you don't even know what this vision is, because you have so much on top of you, of like what I should do, what I should be doing right now. I should make money for this, and as I should live there. And those are not your thoughts, those are not your desires, those are not your values, and what is really that your soul wants. And we're very basic creatures. We don't want much. You see a lot of people who get to a point in their life that they a lot of money, they make a lot of money, they have a very simple life. And I feel like there's so much value in simplicity. In the more simple our life is, the more we can get out of it. But we are in a world where we're overwhelmed with information all the time and stuff, and we think that we need, but it's also part of evolution, right? We need to be onto something to evolve. But the happiest people that I know are the ones that have a simple life.
Yeah. But the question is also, can you tolerate a simple life? Because I know
with this neurotic state that I'm in right now, no.
I'm somewhere between super neurotic, the way that I used to be, and my full potential. I feel like I'm somewhere on the way there. Definitely not.
But what is a simple life?
So I know that if I would make my life very simple and just get up, don't check my phone, read a book, take a walk, have a simple meal, eat it slowly and mindfully, just go through my day like that. I can do that for like 3 days. And then I'm like, okay, what interesting, exciting thing am I going to do? Who am I going to call? What am I going to create? What am I going to worry about? Let me get something to worry about. Let me get something to feel dissatisfied about. Let me get something to feel like I'm super behind on life with. And let me basically take the feelings that I always feel, project them onto something, and then get supercharged and work on it, basically, and create problems where there are actually no problems. And I feel like that's how many people would respond. They can go on a retreat where they are forced into a simple lifestyle where it's super healthy for them, but then they go home and then they create all of these diversions for themselves, because that's just the level that they're at, right? And I'm also at that level where I can go on a retreat and live a simple lifestyle, be in community, have healthy food, not worry about a lot, and just be slow and mindful. But if I go home and I'm like, my ego is in full control, I think that's also the key. Like my ego is in full control. When I'm on a meditation retreat or some other kind of retreat, I'm being guided. But now, if I'm at the steering wheel, I'm going to make it complicated, man. I'm going to create problems. I'm going to create things to worry about. I'm going to project all these things that I don't have and have to have right now. That's just how it's going to go.
I think there are phases in our life, right? And like just hearing you say, I'm in the same place, even though I know that eventually in my life, I'm going to have a simple life, because I know that deep inside it's because there's the one sense of my ego and there's the one sense of my soul. And the one sense for my ego, it's exactly what you are describing. Like for me, I love to create. I love to create something out of nothing. Like if I didn't record this video that we're recording right now, there wouldn't be anything. And for me, that's the most valuable thing that you can do as a human being. And I do love the process of creation and everything. But I feel like it's priorities, right? We always change. Our values are always changing in our life. And right now, that's what we're doing. And the other insight is that you said that I don't know if I agree, because I feel like the more you open up for the divine to work through you, the less control you are going to have, and the more enjoyable is going to be your life, because you're opening up a channel, right? You are basically putting yourself in a place of service. And the world is going to send you to many different places, different people to really connect and bring something valuable to this reality here. So I don't think that we become more neurotic when we open up to be of service. I think it's
No, that's
Yeah,
not
at
what I
least
meant.
for me, what I've experienced so far is that that's part of my mantra in the morning. I ask, please, Great Spirit, to use me for the greatest good of all, and let me act from the place of the heart, not of the mind, and I will do whatever it takes to be in a place of service. So and after I opened this channel, a lot of things start happening in my life. Like it really started using me as a tool. Like, okay, she volunteered, and now that we're gonna use her. And I don't know if my life became calmer, but it is more fulfilling. And I feel like right now I'm in the same phase as you, like just creating and meeting new people and working on myself. And it's fun, but I feel like priorities are going to change. And eventually, after I pass this phase, I'm going to start focusing on more like the spiritual side of like living a calmer life. I'm still going to have the creation because I get a lot out of it. It's my passion, but
Totally.
I do want to have a more balanced life because right now I'm very psycho about personal development.
Yeah. I didn't mean to imply that if you open yourself up to be used for the greater good by the divine, that you then get more neurotic. I just meant that if I would sit in silence and have a very calm life, it would take maybe 2 days before
You're bored.
everything that I haven't worked through yet will start to rear its ugly head and be projected onto my external reality, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
that's
I
kind of
know.
what I mean.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
and
work,
that's so
right?
fascinating because the way I perceive my life is sort of it's equanimous to the extent that my shadow cannot be projected onto it, and then wherever my shadow, for lack of a better word, recognizes something that can be related to some not fully processed experience, some unfelt feeling, I'm going to have that unfelt feeling, but about that external thing that happened. Like somebody in traffic cut in front of me, or some colleague said something that I think they shouldn't have said to me, and I'm going to have a feeling about it, and I'm going to think, well, that's really about because they said that, but actually this is the feeling that I should have had somewhere in my childhood, and I have no idea that it's actually about something old. And that's what I mean. Like, until I've processed all of that, which can really take years or decades, depending on how fast you go, these things are going to come up and create unrest in life, and all these little things are going to pop up that you're going to have intense feelings about, and then you think, well, why can't I just be peaceful? But just these are all hints of
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for sure.
So crazy, the amount of work. Like I worked so much on myself. I was sitting with this lady after the ayahuasca ceremony, and she's like, wow, you are so young and you are so wise. And I'm like, yeah, I've been through a lot. I'm working on myself a lot.
Oh my God, have you? Yeah.
It is a lot of work, but I feel like because we're in a place of service and we're helping, it sends us more stuff, more lessons for us to pass, and get the gold. The gold only comes from deep suffering, and you need to be in that place.
Have you
Oh,
ever
Erik, I want to know more about traumas because that's your knowledge, right?
had, before you go into that, the experience that you're working with a client and they are having to have the same lesson that you have to have, and you're like kind of
Yes.
the same thing at the same time? It's so crazy.
Yes. And then it's like, I haven't fully embodied this lesson. Can I really teach the person about that? Can I help them? And
Exactly.
because sometimes it's stuff that I'm still working on, and I'm like, why? What are the chances, right? So what a coincidence that this is showing up, and that's how the universe works. But that's how we went through all the suffering, just so we can shine the light. It's basically we're showing a path, right? That's my path, and you can create your own path. But that's how I did mine, and maybe you can do something similar. I think that's because the universe doesn't waste anything, right? It always puts the right people around, like the right time.
Yeah, if you're able to see it that way, yeah, then it becomes true. Yeah.
Yeah, the universe does not waste. That's what I'm shocked by. Like everything that I went through brought me to the place that I am now, and now I can connect the dots. Like I don't know who said the quote that we can only connect the dots looking backwards, right? We cannot never connect the dots with what's coming because it hasn't happened yet. But when I look back into my life, it's like every little thing that happened, especially the bad ones, brought me here, and it could not have happened any other way. So there's like this, even though it's a mess, it's divinely orchestrated. There is a whole perfection behind the whole shit show, you know? Yeah.
So, do you actually sit with people in ceremony as like part of what you do? Because
No,
I thought that's what you said, and I'm just curious, like in what way do you
no,
work with people
my
now?
full night sessions I integrate. I'm a psychedelic integration coach. So I don't, because it's illegal here, right? So for me as a foreign living in the country, I'm like, okay. And then I asked in the forum, like, how can I work with that? And people are like, as long as you don't sell and you don't administer in people, you're gonna be fine. According to the law, you can talk about it, but you don't do anything like related to selling. So whenever I need to watch my groups that I have, because whenever someone sells something, I just delete, because that's how I protect myself. Eventually it's going to be legal. I do intend to do this work. Like in Auckland, for example, it was decriminalized, so I'm planning with a friend to do cacao with mushrooms, and then we're going to do like an immersion group of women, which is going to be amazing.
Oh,
But
that's
right now that's not what I've led people, uh, but that's not what I'm doing right now. Ideally that's what I want to do, but legally I can't.
but you could say that the integration is the most important part,
Yeah.
right?
It is for sure, because if you travel through the cosmos and you have all those insights, Terence McKenna says that he says the psychedelic astronaut, something like that, the astronaut psychedelic, has a responsibility of diving into that ocean of knowledge and bringing something of substance to this reality. We have this responsibility when we enter a psychedelic trip. So I gather all those people that are bringing stuff to, because he says that the world is in deep need of new ideas and new ways of thinking. So when we go into those experiences, we bring something. And if you don't really know how to integrate and bring those changes into your daily life, it was nothing. It was just like you were kind of wasting the substance. Because how are you changing the little things in your life? How are you applying? Because you're basically in a psychedelic trip, you dive into the darkness, right? It's basically before you had a candle in your room and you lived your whole life with that candle. And then suddenly you take a psychedelic and you turn the lights on and there's like a whole room full of stuff. And we see the darkness, that the stuff that we need to work on. And it's difficult to see these in our daily life. Of course, that naturally life is going to bring that outside of psychedelic trips, but it's more slow, the process. But in a psychedelic trip, you are basically bringing the darkness to the light. And the darkness is all those boxes of stuff. It's like you move to this new place and you still have a lot of stuff packed you haven't unpacked, and inside those boxes there are like a lot of like very valuable things. So you're going to open those boxes and it's darkness, right? It's usually you need to clean this stuff before you can use it in your life, which is when we do, right? It's like an alchemy. You take the darkness, you do like the deep suffering, you take the gold out of it and you use it in your life to help people or to for yourself. So bringing this darkness to the light is a very difficult process. And the psychedelic trip is like a dream. You know, when you have a dream and you forget about the dream, and then throughout the day, you are showering and you're like, wow, I had a dream about this, this, and that. So you learn a lot in a short period of time. And bringing that into your normal reality is very difficult. First, because it's darkness and you don't want to look at it. And like there's a whole process of like writing down what you learned so you can work on it, and like having someone helping you through this process, because those boxes are full of dust and full of ugly things. Like you need to clean the stuff, and a lot of people don't want to go there. You know, it's a lot of trauma that needs to be unpacked. So that's what I do. So I bring
So
those.
you talk to people after they've had a
Yeah.
psychedelic experience, and
Yeah, and
then
actually my whole work is not based only on the psychedelics. I do have the Maverick method, which is basically erasing the social conditioning and getting to your core. And inside my method, there's something called the toolbox. And inside the toolbox, there is psychedelics and there's meditation. There's like a lot of tools that you can use to go through this transformation. And but it's not, my work is not only focused on psychedelics, because a lot of people look for me because of the psychedelics, and it's not a magic pill. You need to do the work. So if you want to, it's a tool inside the whole method, because you need to do the whole process. It's not only taking the psychedelic, because I don't want people to come to me and think that their whole life is going to change because they took a psychedelic, right?
I can't tell you how many people I have, like how many times I've had a client ask, like, can we also do this work while I'm on psychedelics next time? And I just, almost everybody asked me that at some point. And I always have to say, like, you know, probably that's not even gonna make a big difference. And I would not, I would honestly, if you can get there, if you already made the connection to your subconscious, or to what you call the darkness, if you've already established some sort of way to get in touch with that while in a sober state, then you really don't need to amp it up with psychedelics. You can, if you know how to dose, and if you know what you can handle, and if you know how to like not take too much and not be irresponsible with it. Sometimes it can help. If you take ayahuasca and it's facilitated really well, then that can really help. But people are so eager to take a magic pill. Mm-hmm. Like, well, can't I just, instead of doing all this asking questions and feeling the uncomfortable feelings, can't I just take this thing and will that also do the same thing?
Do the work, right? I know that at some point in the forum, Leo would just respond, do the work. He wouldn't even type anything. He would just do the work. Because a lot of people send me messages, Laisa, I'm doing microdose, I'm taking, and it's not working. And I'm like, what are you expecting? You need to do the work. Psychedelics only show you what you need to work on, but the work itself, you need to do it. Someone needs to do it, and it's not the psychedelics. They're not gonna do it for you. So it's the magic pill because of society. It's the way society is nowadays. Everything is fast, right? Fast food. We don't see that it takes time to do things, to have a transformation. And yeah, a lot of people look for me for magic pills. That's why I developed my whole method, not based on psychedelics, because I don't want them to think that that coach didn't work. The same way with psychedelics didn't work. The coach didn't work, because they need to do the work themselves. I cannot do it for them, right?
I think that's awesome that you developed that method that's not just based on, you know, taking the psychedelic and just kind of seeing what happens, hoping for the best after that. Because it's really like, if you want to grow in some way, it's not like taking a psychedelic is going to automatically do that for you. Like, people can take mushrooms and go to a party and just see some weird stuff and they learn nothing. It's really, you have to have that.
That's Terence McKenna says, psychedelics don't work on stupid people. It's so true. A lot of friends are like, I took 3 tabs and then everything was like a cartoon, and I'm like, but what were your insights? I'm like, yeah, and then everything was like a cartoon. I'm like, but what were your insights? Like, if you don't have depth, psychedelics are not going to bring you anywhere. And a lot of people take psychedelics and because they're not doing the work. So it's just going to show whatever they have at that moment inside themselves. So if it's nothing, if they've never worked on themselves, if they're like superficial person, there won't be anything there. They're just going to experience visuals, only visuals. That's what I see. I don't know.
Yeah, no, exactly. You have to have that internal curiosity. There has to be some sort of drive to develop. And for some people, that just hasn't woken up yet. And I'm not sure whether that happens for everybody. I think at some point it will happen for people when they run into some serious struggle, some serious trouble. And that's like, well, when you have nowhere to go, you can either just remain depressed about it, or you can develop a curiosity of like, what could I do about this? You know, my doctor doesn't have a solution. My psychiatrist doesn't have a solution. Is there anything else? And I feel like that can develop some sort of curiosity, but it has to be there. Yeah,
it's the awakening, right? It's. I was watching a video from Metcon, and then I told my friend, this video didn't really resonate with me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Metcon only works when you are in deep suffering. So you're happy right now, it's not gonna work." And I'm like, that is so true, because we only go after the tools and everything when we're in deep suffering, and it has to happen. A lot of people, they ask me, why you do all of that? I'm like, yeah, because I'm in deep suffering, and it's okay. And in society nowadays, we pretend we're okay, right? Everyone is pretending we're civilized. In this ayahuasca session, I was saying like how much we pretend everything is okay and everything is the rainbows and light, and no, people are acting the way they're acting because they're in suffering. I think it was Matt Kahn who said that if you saw how deeply people are suffering, their behavior wouldn't surprise you. And it's so true. Like you don't even need to look far to see how much people are suffering. Just their action, just being so absorbed within themselves without thinking about people around them. It's like, yeah, that's an animal. I had this insight in the ayahuasca too. An animal, like a dog, if he's happy, like he comes to you, he jumps on you, he licks you, he's shaking, he's waggling his tail, he's all happy, right? Now, if that dog was run over by a car and his bones are exposed, like you're going to try to touch him, he's going to bite you. So that's what happens to us as humans. As we get hurt because of trauma, abuse, neglect, we get bitter and we bite people. So the people's behavior shows us where they're at and what they're feeling within themselves. So it's so easy to look at it that way, because then you see like, okay, that person, my grandma sent me a message those days, and it was she said like 3 things that was like, I haven't gone to Brazil in like 8 years. And she's like, your niece probably doesn't even know how you look like. She probably doesn't even know your name. And she's like, don't you want to hug her? But she sent a message that was like a bomb. And like, just like one after another, right? She said, I'm going to die and you're not going to see me. And I don't go because I can't. It's not because I don't want to. And I've explained to her many times. And then I just took that on, like very painful for my heart. And I put a hand in my heart and I'm like, okay, how do I take that in? And the conclusion that I got is that she's in deep suffering, and people in deep suffering, they hurt people. So she's not even doing because she's evil or because she wants to hurt me. She's just giving me a sample of whatever she's drinking, and then I was able to understand a little better and not get trapped in like, oh, she's so mean. That is just where she's at, and it's a result of neglecting her body her whole life. And then she told me, but what are you gonna do in your future? You never got. It was like a bomb. She's like, you never got. I'm divorced, and she's like, you divorced. You are so full. You should be married with kids. You didn't even buy a house. And I'm like, good Lord. And then in the end of the message, she's like, yeah, because I didn't have a house, and I'm not married. So I'm not married. No, she divorced. I don't know. It's messed up. But she's basically saying, I didn't have my life, so I want you to live yours. So I'm putting all the responsibility on you. And she's in deep suffering. She didn't live the life that she wanted. She's in pain, probably in her body. And a result of that is that I don't have a loving grandma, and it's okay to see where she's at, and I don't need to take that in and take it personal and think that my grandma is mean, but it's a whole process.
Never able to accept
where
that.
people are at, yeah, and have compassion with myself too, because at the same time I don't want to be talking to her all the time, right? To be like, maybe right now I'm very sensitive, I cannot talk to her, and also giving love to the child within me, who still expect my grandma to be a loving person and blah blah blah, which she is. She's an awesome person, but she does have her darkness, and how much of our darkness is integrated, like you said, like if we don't bring all that stuff, we all have traumas. If we don't heal this stuff, we're gonna spread it around. It's like that black thing from Cars, like the grease thing, like it gets everywhere if we don't address. And we carry it around, and it's a long process to get rid of that. It's the process that we're both going through. It looks endless, but it's rewarding, I think, at the same time.
I found it helpful to realize how two-dimensional people actually look at you in the time that they're projecting something onto you. So when you get such a reaction from your grandmother, she's not seeing you as, not even three-dimensional you. She's only seeing the projection. And that, for me, that's like a way to not take it as personally, because I remember that when I am projecting things onto people, right, For example, I had a lot of bullying in my past. Sometimes when that gets triggered, I only see people as people who might potentially hurt me or something like that. I don't see the people. I don't see people with hopes and fears and desires and hobbies and relationships. I just see just what I project onto them. And it's easy for me to be mean to that or to be defensive to that because I'm actually not seeing the person. And so when I see someone else be very callous or mean to me, sometimes I manage to realize, oh yeah, well, when I'm that mean to someone, I'm not actually seeing the person. So they're not actually seeing me, which means it's not personal.
But it's difficult for us to get to that place, right? Where, okay, it's not personal. Like whatever people are doing, most of the time, it's about them. It's about where they're at. They're showing me whatever they, and I've seen that played out in all my romantic relationships. Is basically once ayahuasca told me I was with this guy, and ayahuasca was like, you never really saw him, and he never saw you. You are both like, it's inner child fighting with inner child, and you were both fighting. No one ever saw each other. And that was a hard pill to swallow. Like I'm with this person for 4 months. I think that I'm crazy in love with the person, and I'm just playing out my traumas. And I see this happen a lot in a relationship. That's why the goal of relationship shouldn't be like one against the other. It's like both of us against our traumas. Like whenever something rises up, it's like, how are we going to address that? Okay, your traumas are coming up, and how are we going to deal with that? So it's like a team, right? It's not like, oh, you were treating me like that. It's not pointing fingers. It's basically like, we humans, we all have traumas. So how are we treating your inner child, right? Because we're pissed right now. And all the time when we're pissed, it is the inner child.
Yeah.
So how are we going to address that instead of
almost
just
nobody realizes that, is that every time you're shouting at each other, every time you're slamming a door, every time you try to convince somebody of something and you can't stand the fact that somebody disagrees with you, it's a trauma playing out.
It is.
I think there's
I know we're going to have part 2. Yes.
Yeah, this is
we didn't even talk much about traumas.
I know. And like, we don't specifically have to. There's so much that I have a lot to say about and that you have a lot to say about. And there's also a lot of overlap there. And I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's very interesting.
And one thing that really makes you score some points with me is that you quote Terence McKenna a lot. And Terence McKenna is like my favorite person. So
What is your sign, Erik?
Sorry?
Your zodiac sign? When is your birthday? When is your birthday?
My birthday is 30 October.
You are a Scorpio.
Oh yeah, is that it? Yeah, okay. Of course. Scorpio.
Yeah, you're a Scorpio, right?
Yes.
My dad is 29, I think. Yeah, my dad is the 29th. Terence McKenna was a Scorpio too. Did you know that?
No, I didn't, but I love that.
Steve Jobs was a Scorpio. I know a lot of Scorpios. That's why you have a lot of depth. You're a Scorpio. Scorpios like to go into darkness. Well, like even the insect itself, he goes under the rocks and he stays there for a long time. So Scorpios see the darkness in people too, so you can read people how they actually are because you see what they hide, right? You see their darkness. So Scorpios like to talk a lot about things that people are uncomfortable with, which is like sex, death, or traumas, or like all this dark stuff. Is that you?
Yes, that's me. This is kind of blowing my mind right now a little bit because I thought that was just my unique personality, but apparently it's just my my zodiac sign. So yeah, no, before I grew up a little bit out of that, I used to basically just talk about things that made people uncomfortable all the time. All the time. That was my favorite thing to do. Especially things like
you are a button pusher.
Button pusher, yes. I would talk to people about sex. I would talk to people about drugs. And if I sensed that it made them uncomfortable, I would talk more to them about sex and more to them about drugs. And I would just push and push and push and just see what happens. See how long they can stand it. And just, I want to point this out. Like, this is something you're uncomfortable with. You're hiding
Okay,
yourself
so
from that.
that exactly. So that's why you're able to push people, and they don't like it because they're not. You see the truth, right? And not everyone's ready to see their own darkness. So you push them to see because you see, and probably people cannot lie to you because Scorpios, since you can read everything, people try to lie and are like, oh, I know your BS. Yeah, I can see through your BS. I know that you're lying. So it's very difficult to lie. Scorpios are also very intuitive. So like you read in between the lines, like you sense what people don't sense.
Yeah, I've learned to cover it up a little bit with people I don't know so well. So I do this with my close friends, and I've selected close friends that can tolerate this, right? They can tolerate the brutal truth as I see it, even though it will take them.
It is difficult because I'm like that too. I'm a button pusher too, and it's very difficult to in my friendships, like many of my friends just simply block me from everything because it's the truth, right? I become friends with them, and I say things. And there was a friend that I basically told her, okay, your relationship is very toxic, and she agreed with me, and she told me like, yeah, it's very toxic. And then after a while, I think she talked to her boyfriend or whatever, and she's like, you know what? You're very mean, Laisa. You say things about people and blah blah blah. I am not toxic, and my boyfriend's not toxic, and then she just disappears. But some people that I have around me, they really appreciate. They're like, yeah, Liza, I want people. Even like yesterday, I had a mentoring session, and she's like, yeah, because I don't want to hear the good things about me. I already know that I'm good, but what about my bad side, right? I want to hear about that because there are a few people that I have in my life that do tell me like, hey, you have this shadow side of you that you do this, and that. How do you want to address that, right? Because it affects us, and we're not used to people telling us about our darkness. It's difficult to hear, and it's difficult to talk to people about it. So that's why you've always been like that, like talking about like pushing people and pressing their buttons, because you can see any part of that. It's the creative side also of Scorpio, because you can see their potential, right? You can see who they could be, but do they want to get there? No, they don't want to get there.
This is actually what got me a lot of my childhood trauma, honestly. This is what got me bullied in school, when I didn't have this under control. And I was just, instead of making friends, I was just telling people the truth about themselves all the time.
Yeah, that you make enemies like that.
I'm making enemies. And I didn't understand what that would do to my social position or anything like that. What I did see was just what I saw, and I could express it. And I remember, like, actually the first day of school, I walked up to this guy, and I perceived, okay, he's just following the rest. He doesn't have any uniqueness to him. He's not, and that's basically what I told him. Like, yeah, you're just a follower. Like, this is bullshit what you're doing. And I just repeated that process until everybody hated me. And that was my high school time.
So funny.
Yeah, now it's funny. Yeah.
I repeated the process. Okay, mission accomplished. Next. I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but I know because I'm like that.
It's fine.
I went to this weekend. I went to visit my sister because she lives where I do the ayahuasca ceremony, and she needed to do some stuff in her life. Every time I go there, I'm like, let's do stuff. Let's organize your life, and then I take charge of things. I'm like, let's sit there and let's do it. And she's like, oh, but. And then she gets very anxious because she's been avoiding to do the work, right? And I'm like, let's do like some paperwork that she needs to do. I'm like, let's sit and let's do. And I sat close to her. And for 4 hours, she was just obligated to do the stuff that she's been avoiding for a year. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And then she did it. And then the next day after she finished the ceremony, she was talking to the other guy. She's like, yeah, because I had a ceremony yesterday with Laisa. And then today I had the second one. And then she said that being around me is a psychedelic experience because I'm kind of not forcing, but like I see where she can be if she does what she needs to do. So I help her to get to where she wants to be, right? But it's a painful process because a lot of trauma comes up, anxiety. And this friend that went with me to the ayahuasca ceremony, he lost his wife like 3 months ago. It was like in a motorcycle accident, really bad. And I was helping him to clean his space. And I went into his place, and I asked him, can I clean around? Like, I like to organize. Do you give me the green light to just go and gather the stuff, and he's like, yeah. So I did his whole house, and I love organizing, but it is very emotional for him because he lost his wife, right? All her stuff was there. And he said that like you do have this energy of like very transformative energy, which is like chaotic, but at the same time it's good,
Yeah,
He's
it's
like,
good.
yeah,
Like that's a good friend to have.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like I told you, I like you said too, I pay a price because not everyone likes that, right? Not everyone is ready to change. Some people just want to be where they're at. Like they just want to be comfortable, like in their little place. And some people, I tell them like, if you want to be in that small place, you're gonna be there, but I'm not gonna talk to you. When you step up into your power, and I got into the habit of saying that, when you step into your power, you can talk to me. I'm not gonna accept that you are a victim, like letting you be in this small place that you put yourself. I know that you're more powerful than that. So when you decide to step into your power, then you talk to me. But I'm not gonna be listening to you complaining and being the victim of your life. And I lose friends and I lose partners, and life goes on. But a lot of people appreciate which are the real people, the ones that actually should be in our life, right?
Have you ever done a Myers-Briggs test?
Yes, I am.
Can I can
I
I
am
can I can I
TJ.
make a guess?
Yes.
I didn't hear what you said,
Uh,
but my guess that I had in my mind would be ENFJ.
INTJ.
INTJ, really?
Mhm.
How are you introverted?
I can be extroverted, but I don't like even my coaching sessions. Like I was doing a marketing thing with this group, and he's like, "Why don't you do groups? Because I would make more money." And for me, it's like the consciousness of the group is lower than one-on-one conversations. You can go deeper. So for me, it's like if it's yeah, the level of consciousness. Because whenever you have 3 or 4 people, every time someone is like, oh, let me just agree so I don't get into fight, I don't want to discuss, I don't want them to take it personal that I'm disagreeing with what they're saying. So I feel like the level of depth is different when it's one-on-one or when it's a group of people. So I prefer having one-on-one conversations. I hate groups like big. If I go party and I dance. I'm there to dance, but to talk to people in groups, I don't like it.
No,
And
I never
everyone's
liked
trying to show off what they know, and the people that talk the most are the ones who know the least. So it's like it's a shit show.
Yeah, yeah. What is that? There's a name for that. That the more you learn, the more you shut up because you realize how much you don't know. Um,
Socrates said that I know that I know nothing.
yeah. Well, there's
There
there's
was a
someone.
quote yesterday that I posted in some of Leo's videos, and someone liked my comment, and then he showed that for me yesterday. It says, um, madness is rare in individuals, but in masses, it's the rule. Like if you are doing something, like if I'm gonna kill you, I won't kill you. But if there's a group with me, I'm most likely to kill you than just me and you. So whenever there is a big group, there's more. The level of consciousness is lower, so people have more tendency to do crazy things or be mean. Yeah,
So you're going to buy your Burning Man ticket in a
I
few
am.
minutes, right?
Oh my god,
I think that might be a nice topic to round off with, because the reason I actually got in touch with you is because you described something that you did at Burning Man, which was a very unique way to process trauma.
That is so true. Oh my
Yeah.
God. How crazy is that, right? Because everything has a reason. And like, yeah, I'm dressed as a nun, and people loved it. I went to a wedding at Burning Man dressed as nun, and I smoked hashi. And everyone was looking at me like, that's so rad. Because we all have the religious trauma, right?
I mean, many of us. I don't really have that.
You don't?
No.
Were you an atheist and then you became spiritual?
Yeah. Yeah. That's basically what happened.
Paradynamic. So you were born into a stage orange.
I was born into a somewhat stage green.
No way. That's so amazing. I can even think of how that would be.
Yeah, it goes a little bit against the idea that you need to do the stages one by one, because I feel like when I look at my parents, they're really kind of repressing stage orange a lot, I would say. but their values are very stage
But
green.
they represent because blue is not only about religion, right? It's about order and authority and respecting the government and following rules. So how
my parents are not that.
No?
Not at all.
So they are just kind of, so they are stuck in stage orange. Because they cannot move forward, right?
If you subscribe to the model that you have to do them one by one, then yes.
Yeah,
but
you
I
cannot
don't
skip
really,
stages.
No, you can't skip stages, but I do think that you can have like a partial growth in a certain stage and then really need to catch up on the thing before that. And that's what I think I'm seeing with kind of where my parents are at. Like their values are very stage green and their political, they're voting like all very stage green, but they never fully, like, I don't know, they really look down on everything stage orange. Mm-hmm. So I cannot really peg them as stage blue because that really doesn't fit. They're very anti-authoritarian, they're very free-spirited, and et cetera, et cetera.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so it's not very easy to like put them at a specific sequential step on that ladder or something like that. But
so they have the shadow of not integrating orange, right? And then they cannot move to yellow.
Yeah, and I really rebelled against that, and I felt that shadow because they would say things like, all rich people are evil, and if you have money, it means that you are an asocial, arrogant asshole who cares about material things.
Very stage green.
Yeah. So basically, if you're successful, that means that you're an arrogant asshole who only cares about material things, and it's like all these bad things. And CEOs of companies are always manipulative psychopaths, and there's no way, and it is so common like for people to believe, like there's no way someone who is like very successful could also be a good person. That's actually like that's not possible because good people don't care about success or something like that, And I just felt this to be super untrue, and I started arguing with my parents about that all the time.
But where do you think what is evil? If they say evil, like money is evil, successful people are evil, because the idea of evil comes from religion, right? So even if they're spiritual, it's still coming from like, there's punishment, there's a good guy, there's a bad guy. There's some investigation to do that, right? That's so interesting.
There's also a bit about, I think, just sort of unfairness, like, it's just not fair, and therefore, like, if I don't have this and you do have that, then you're not being fair to me. Or I think it's also just
it's stage green.
Yeah, I think, but I mean, I saw that as just very incomplete, and I would just rally against that, and just part of my rebellion, like if you want to talk about rebellion, like becoming the opposite of what your parents wanted you to be, I for a long time said, like, I'm gonna get rich, and I'm gonna do all these stage orange things, and I actually didn't know why, but when I inquired upon it, I realized, no, I do this because my dad would really hate it. That's why I want to get rich. Like that's why I want to be successful.
Scorpios are very ambitious too, right?
Yeah, so there's so often so common is to have like there's a real part, and then there's a bit of a trauma influenced part, right, or like a conditioning part. So yeah, part of me has just a healthy ambition, and that's fine, and a part of me just wants to like do it extra to show my parents that they were wrong about what they taught me or something like that.
How much is really us, and how much is like I was saying, how much is the real me, and how much is just a reaction to the things.
And the art is to not throw the baby out with the bathwater and think like, oh, well, all of this is fake, so I should completely disregard that. And how do you separate what is conditioning influenced with versus what is authentic? It's so difficult. Why is it so difficult? Because it's impossible to see that without processing your shit, without processing your childhood trauma and your conditioning, like in the way that we do with people. That has to be done first before you can even see which is authentic and which is conditioning, because it's always entangled, and you have to get rid of the conditioning before you can even see.
In other words, we're not really seeing each other, right?
Yeah.
Matt Kahn said in one of his videos, like we're basically just like those bodies muffling around like and like, and then we give meaning to those words, but basically we're just going around, and you can see the quality of the person saying by their face, like by their posture, like if they're like saying something mean, if they're saying something loving, and we're no, it's a whole process for us to really meet. And he has another, I quote a lot of Matt Cantu. He has another quote that says, you can only meet someone as deeply as they have met themselves. So we can do the work, but if the person doesn't have depth, like we're not really gonna get anywhere. So that's why we need to be around people that are also doing the work, because then they're gonna have the same depth as we have. Otherwise, we're gonna just think that we're crazy, right? Because I feel like I judge myself a lot as crazy because I've never fit in. So I was bullied in college. I was bullied in college. Can you believe that? So I would always be like, oh, I'm an outsider. Like no one likes me. And I would feel like I'm weird. I'm wrong for being the way I am.
You get
but
bullied
now I
in
see that.
College? Oh my God. Then,
Yeah.
well, there
Can
must
you
be really
that?
something wrong with you then. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh my God. I got this feeling that I just, wherever I go, I would get bullied. And I would, change schools. Do you know that? Like you change schools,
I have a little of that too.
Environment, and it just happens again. Like then you really start believing there must be something wrong with me, right? Yeah.
I still have a lot of this. Yeah, a little or a lot of, I don't know. Oh, Erik, are you gonna go to Burning Man?
No, I wish.
No?
I don't have the funds.
Oh my God. You need to integrate Station Orange, right?
I do. Yes.
I'm in the same place. But for me, it's close, right? For you, you need to leave the country and do all of that.
Yeah, no, I need to spend a couple thousand on plane tickets, just only that, right? And you can't do that right now.
But it's a crazy place. Yeah. We can talk only about
so
that next
time. What are you gonna wear this time?
The nun is also going. I don't know. It was funny because I spent so much money in clothes, and half of the time I was just naked. I would just put underwear, just walk around there. So it's like, it's a very free place. And I'm like, oh, look at me, how silly, just spending a lot of money. And now I feel like I'm going to customize a lot of my clothes, because it's so special when you make it yourself, and you can just do whatever you want and express yourself. It's a gem, that place. It's like, it's this place in the middle of nowhere that you can do whatever you want to do. It's like it's utopic.
Awesome. And is it like, are you going to take the full, what is it, 6 weeks, or how long does it last?
No, it's 10 days. 10 days.
But I thought Burning Man was multiple weeks. Am I wrong about that?
Well, they probably do 3 weeks or a month, because they need to set up the whole thing, to create everything. You can get there before to help them build. But it's just a week. Yeah. It's very hot. It's harsh. It's a harsh environment.
Yeah. I've seen all those dusty pictures of people so beautifully dressed.
It is so crazy. I can tell you my Burning Man.
So much sand. Yeah.
The next video. Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to have a second one, Erik. We're not able.
Yes.